Unleashing the Wild Witch, Chapter 1, Jane. "Here you go, Ned," I said as I placed a mug of foaming beer in front of him. The wood of the counter was worn down to a shiny surface, polished by countless hands. "Thank you, sugar," he grunted, as he lifted the mug with his massive hands and downed it in one gulp. Ned was alright, I guess. He was friendly for a Minotaur, gruff but with a soft heart. Absent-mindedly, I started to dry some mugs as I eyed the group of customers sitting in the corner. Their boots made hollow stomping sounds on the worn wooden boards, kicking up dust that hung in the air like a permanent haze. Not all of them were human, as they huddled over their card game. Some of them had distinctive horns, and I was sure I could smell bone spice from one of them. Laughter burst out from the other corner, where two figures covered in black cloaks had a hushed conversation. They might be human, although I wasn't entirely sure as their movements seemed very jarred. Yep, the blinking star had some crazy customers. The tavern wasn't very big, one might even call it small, but the dark wooden interior made one hell of a place to relax after a day of hard work. 5 round tables were scattered across the room, and the wooden counter stood in the back. All in all, a pretty decent place to spend the evening, if one could ignore the shady deals that might take place here. It started to feel like home to me, but maybe that was just a symptom of spending too much time here. I enjoyed working here. I rarely encountered problems, except for the occasional intoxicated patron who didn't realize Ned could easily throw them out. "Ned, can you keep an eye on the counter for a moment? I need to go to the restroom." I observed Ned's affirmative grunt and a nod from his massive hairy head, his yellowed horns catching the light from the oil lanterns. I took off my stained apron and draped it over the wooden stool behind the counter before heading through the ornate wooden door. It still squeaked, despite my attempts to oil it several times. Beyond the door lay a corridor leading to the kitchen and the employee restroom. The fluorescent light from the kitchen spilled into the hallway, oddly bright compared to the muted yellow lights in the bar itself. Larry, the owner of the Blinking Star, liked having the bar not too bright, something about keeping the Minotaurs calm. I entered the restroom, where the black and white tiles created a stark contrast with the dark oak interior of the rest of the building. Gazing into the small mirror above the washstand, I ensured that my green scarf still concealed the unsightly lump on my neck. My shoulder-length red curls framed my face, and my striking green eyes peered back at me, reflecting a mix of determination and resignation. By the gods, this curse! I could never know when the next boil appeared ugly and painful. Why me? This was not the way I imagined living my adult life, seeing my body deteriorate as the curse slowly progressed, eating me alive. This lump in my neck was also harder to conceal than the one I had on my side. I had to explain multiple times why I suddenly decided to wear a scarf all the time, even during the hot summer, and to make matters worse, the boils hurt sometimes, and the pain got worse over time. In horror, I realized time was running out for me. I just hoped the end would be quick. How many years had it been now? 3? I tightened the scarf around my neck, determined to keep this secret hidden. No one could ever discover the curse that plagued me. I thought about the moment it all began, a memory etched in my mind. She had been consumed by anger and jealousy, her face twisting into a snarl as she spat those fateful words at me. "I'll ensure that no man will ever find you attractive again." The words still reverberated in my mind. If only I had pushed him away, perhaps this wouldn't have occurred. But I was frozen in fear, unsure what to do. He forced himself on me, kissing me in front of half the class. I still remember the sickly pang of disgust I felt at his touch, mingled with shame and humiliation. He didn't kiss me because he liked me. No, He did it to prove a point. He used me for his sick games. I shook my head. It was all in the past now, and nothing I would do could turn back the time. All I could do was hide the lumps and try to survive as long as possible. I just hoped no one would find out about it. The council didn't like cursed ones. Too many people started disappearing, unfortunate people like me. Rumors told about them being sent off to camps to work in horrible conditions. A shiver ran across my back. I surely didn't want to end up being deported to God knows where. I readjusted my red curls and splashed some water on my face. The cold water shook me out of my dark thoughts. I dusted off my black ankle-long skirt and tucked in my shirt. I never had been strikingly beautiful, but now with this curse, there was no way I could ever hope to find love. Who would want a woman covered in ugly lumps? I quickly made my way back to the counter, giving Ned a warm smile. "Thank you, friend. Here, have one on the house." I placed a mug of his favorite beer in front of him, and a slow grin formed on his beastly head. More customers had arrived, and it appeared that this night was going to be particularly busy. I let out a sigh, then picked up my notebook and pencil and made my way to the tables, forcing a smile. 3 young witches fixed their gaze on me and erupted into laughter. Just my luck, 3 little bitches. Ignoring their sniggering, I promptly took their orders and returned to the counter. Even after 3 years since leaving the Esholm School of Magic, or ESOM for short, it still bothered me how many bullies had been among its students. I only had to take one look at their black and green uniforms to taste the bile in my throat. My innocent view of ESOM as a place where one could learn the wonders of magic was quickly destroyed by the realization that in this school the most popular students ruled. They ruled by bullying, often to the point of bodily harm. They seemed to have no conscience, and they convinced most of the other students to be just as heartless just to fit in. I never understood how one could become so cruel, and needless to say, I dropped out of school fairly quickly. Apparently, being a witch wasn't my calling, and I had applied for a job at the Blinking Star, leaving behind my dream of magic forever. Sprinkling some cinnamon and cayenne into the hot chocolate, I completed their order and carried the plate over to the witches. I always liked the smell of cinnamon. Somehow it reminded me of magic and wondrous secrets. A mysterious smell, comforting and warm. Carefully I placed the plate on the oak table. I kept my gaze low and wore a polite smile, prepared to make a swift exit. Just as I was about to turn away, one of them addressed me. "Hey you, is it true?" I turned around, raising an eyebrow. The menace in her voice didn't go unnoticed. "Is what true?" I replied with my sweetest tone, mentally readying myself to defend against any accusations. "You know, you stealing Hillary's boyfriend?" "I don't know what you're talking about. Good evening." I walked away from them, pretending everything was fine. But inside, dark emotions churned, each one fighting for the biggest place in my chest, like some rabid dogs fighting for a bone. Fear, resentment, hate, yes, even hate, a cold feeling that gripped my heart. I heard them snickering behind my back, and I couldn't help but wonder how much longer my past would continue to haunt me. Hadn't I suffered enough already? I hurried back behind the counter, desperately searching for something to occupy my mind. Ned's watchful eyes followed me as I paced back and forth like some sort of caged animal. "Don't let them rile you up, sugar. You'll wear the floor down with all that pacing," he said with a low chuckle. It almost brought a smile to my face. He was right. I shouldn't let them get to me. Those times were long behind me. "Thank you, Ned." Right at that moment, the lump on my side decided to start stinging. I winced, but tried to conceal my discomfort. The lump on my side had started to hurt more frequently, and I had noticed its color had intensified into a deep purple. I just hoped the pain wouldn't get too bad. I already had trouble enough just to hide the boils. I closed my eyes for a brief moment, exhaling through my mouth until the pain subsided. "Maybe you should get those cramps checked out, sugar," Ned said matter-of-factly. "You've been having them quite frequently lately." Wonderful, now Ned had become suspicious. I had to be more cautious. "Nothing to worry about, Ned," I replied. "It's just stomach cramps." I certainly wished that was true. Maybe it would go away by itself eventually. Yeah, right, who was I kidding? The curse would probably kill me within a couple of years. The little information I had been able to find about it wasn't very promising. Suddenly, the music that played in the background got too loud for me, and the smell of beer stung my nose. With a click, I turned off the music box and rubbed my eyes. I had to close early tonight, again. Larry wouldn't be happy about it. However, my migraine would become unbearable soon. Yes, going home early and lying down in bed sounded really good, good enough to risk the anger of my boss.